Hello and welcome to Pages to Pixels, where we talk about a new movie every week. I'm Rohan.
And I'm Keerthana.
Today we're going to talk about the new movie that stars and is directed by Dev Patel, Monkey Man. Well, let's start off with the logline.
Yes. IMDb describes this movie as follows. An anonymous man unleashes a campaign of vengeance against the corrupt leaders who murdered his mother and continue to systematically victimize the poor and powerless. Before we jump in, what did you think, just generally overall?
I actually got to start off with the way I discovered this movie, because a few weeks ago this movie was not on my radar at all. I never heard of it. And then the trailer comes out, and it's probably one of the better trailers I've seen. And now all of a sudden the movie is on my radar, and then I'm hearing all of these behind-the-scenes stories about it. It was first at Netflix, and then Jordan Peele somehow got to see a screening of it, decided to buy it because he thought it deserved a theatrical release. Mm-hmm. Very happy about that. And then all these behind-the-scenes stories of Dev Patel breaking bones and breaking cameras, having to switch to iPhones and GoPros, just made me more and more intrigued to watch this movie. And then it came out and I loved it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was an interesting movie. It was, this is, again, I'm going to start off by saying this is not my genre. I don't watch bloody violence. The trailer was sent to me pretty much as soon as it came out by a friend of mine here in the US. I've noticed that most times if India is either mentioned in a movie or if an Indian person makes the movie, it gets sent to me somehow. This was one of those. When I saw the trailer, I was not, again, not my genre, so I said, cool, he's making an action film. Seems straightforward. And then I got intrigued about the film when, again, I heard about the behind-the-scenes story and I heard about how certain colors were changed between the trailers.
Should we talk about that real quick?
Sure, yeah.
So you gotta really be paying attention, and then you also kind of have to have somewhat of a knowledge of Indian politics to understand the significance. But basically, if you watch trailer 1, there is a scene where there's a scene where they're showing like a political rally for the evil political party in the movie. In trailer 1, that color is orange. Trailer 2, you see the exact same shot, and that's how it is in the movie. That color is now red. Significance of that is that the current ruling party of India, the BJP, uses orange as the color, and it is the exact kind of same shade of orange that it was in trailer 1.
And if we're being honest, I don't think they're super subtle about who they're implying with this movie. Mm-hmm. I'm sure the change was made to hopefully get a release in India. Didn't work out.
Didn't work out, yeah.
So there we have it. But let's just talk about the movie in itself and what we thought about that. Personally, I thought it was a great action film. The screenplay, however, was a little lackluster for me. I had two, I think, major concerns which kind of relate to each other. The first one was that I thought that the first half of the movie and the second half of the movie, they're the same. Like, the protagonist's goal is the same. His obstacles are very, very similar. Mm-hmm. And it didn't really leave much room for an arc. Because if you ask me in this film, I would say, I guess the only arc for Dev Patel's character is that he just learns to become a better fighter. My second, I guess this was a little more of a personal problem I had with it, which is that it was heavily implied, and Dev Patel talks about this a lot, about how this was inspired by the story of Hanuman. Mm-hmm. And I actually didn't, like, the whole, like, connection that it had with the original story, it just went over my head. Because they had a lot of imagery, and it was definitely referenced in the movie quite a lot. But at a narrative level, I just, like, didn't see the connection. And I had to come back outside and, like, do more research, listen to interviews and stuff. And then Rohan and I had a conversation about it. And it took him explaining it to me for me to understand the connection. So, I guess if that was the case, then maybe they were not as successful as they hoped to be in, retelling Hanuman's story.
Yeah, I'm going to push back on both of those things, in my opinion. and I'm gonna frame it in a different way because I like action movies. Sometimes. Actually, so here's the thing. I love the action genre, but I hate most action movies. That's because most action movies are usually not very good. A lot of them feel like they're coming off an assembly line. There are a few exceptions. Something like the John Wick franchise, Mission Impossible franchise. There is something unique about those, and I think the uniqueness that Monkey Man presented to me as an action movie, it actually was a story, because it's not just a simple, straightforward. They could have easily done a simple, straightforward revenge movie the way the first John Wick is, and I'm going to compare it a lot to John Wick. It's getting a lot of the comparisons, and I for the record, I'm a fan of the franchise. I do not hate John Wick, but I prefer Monkey Man so much more over John Wick because they're both revenge stories, but John Wick it's just a straightforward revenge story. Monkey Man does things like going into Hindu mythology and going into the current political climate and providing social commentary from a religious standpoint, from the way that politicians will use religion as a way to manipulate people, social and class-based politics as well. And I think that's why I love the movie. As for his goal not changing, I mean, I think that's kind of, in most movies, the goal usually does not change from a protagonist, especially when you were looking at action movies. John Wick, what's his goal? To get revenge on the guy who killed his dog. That's his goal throughout the entire movie. In Back to the Future, what is Marty McFly's goal? To make sure his parents get together, and then for him to get back to it's Back to the Future, but it's the present for him. So I'm going to push back on that. I think he does go through an arc in that sense, that in two ways. I think in the first half, he is wanting to do everything alone. He looks at this entire revenge mission as his own personal mission and is not seeing it for the big picture, where he has to have the responsibility of like taking down a leader to help others. And he learns that after he is saved by the community and is in the temple that he's in. So I think that is one, and then two, related to it, he still wants revenge, but he goes from it's not just all about revenge, but it's also about learning to fight for like the here and now.
No, I mean, I see how, again, like after this conversation, maybe that's a little more clear, but when I just watched the movie in the first shot, like that did not come across to me. So maybe merits from a little more of a technical conversation. If we look at the story and like try to break down the screenplay, what would you say the inciting incident was?
I believe the inciting incident would be when they get the phone. So when they find out about where Queenie is. So my big, like, I guess my first gripe started there, because we don't have the answer to why now. Because he has access to the kid who shows him the phone from before, clearly. He has access to money from before. And his mission to take revenge on the political party also exists from before. So I maybe that's the first instance where I felt a little disconnected. I'm guessing that the turn into Act 2 would be when he joins the company as an employee, or gets the promotion, one of those two. And then I'm guessing the midpoint is when he falls off the cliff, right? And then is rescued by the Hijras.
Which, I mean, that was incredible,
Loved
that
it.
entire actions. Okay, we'll get into that. But, and then his low point would be what? I'm thinking that it has to be after he has that, has that little, before he takes that drug and goes on this, mind-bending trip.
I would actually say I think this movie, it doesn't necessarily do conventional structure. In general, a lot of movies, when you have the low point being towards the end of the second act, or the start of the third act, usually the midpoint is some kind of false victory. I think because in this one, the midpoint was him losing.
Right.
The low point
didn't feel low.
The low point ended up being a high point. I mean, I kind of compare it to The Dark Knight Rises, what comes to mind. The midpoint of that movie is when Batman gets destroyed and his back is broken by Bane.
Right.
So instead of having a low point be a low point, the low point was a high point, which is when he finally escapes the prison.
Right. And I guess that's that. I mean, that I guess what I was trying to say is that usually I associate internal arc with the low point.
Mm-hmm.
So once we hit that, I know that my character's arcing and he's learned something, his internal journey is complete. And with this new information, he's going into the third act more equipped to solve the problem. And like I said, like after leaving the movie, if we think about it and break it down and try to find out like what's working and what isn't, then this stuff comes to the forefront. But while watching it, that was missing for me.
Okay. See, for me, it wasn't missing. Yeah. No, I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, but
I mean, but also like it's, I don't know. I mean, I think this is the first time like I'm really seeing subjectivity with the movie, because I have been doing a deep dive and watching basically what anyone has to say about the movie, and I mean, most reviews are pretty good. Like everyone seems to have enjoyed it, and I agree with popular consensus with the whole cinematography conversation. I thought the camera work in this film was mind-blowing. Like, it was amazing. Especially the POV shots that they did.
Yeah.
So well executed.
And just the lighting as well in a lot of the scenes. When he finally gets to the top of the building and the elevator doors open, which is the poster.
Yep.
It's the red lights.
I mean, also just the visual of like Dev Patel's silhouette with the monkey man mask over it. It was really, really well done.
Here's my one issue with that whole thing, though, is we see that scene where he cleans the mask and it's like nice and new looking, and he approaches the building with the mask on, and as soon as he walks in, he takes it off.
Yep.
And I'm like, wait, I expected him to fight with it on.
No, I mean, it was yeah, no, I see your point. It also wasn't super clean when you put it back on.
Yeah.
Which I was like, God damn it.
I kind of do like that he ripped it off, though, because then we could see, oh, it's him doing the stunts. It's not a stuntman that they sent in.
I mean, yes. And he broke his bones doing it, so we have the proof. I also really like when he places the bet on himself. Yeah. Which I thought was a very cool, like, metaphorical way. And, like, they also, like, literally did it. Which it was pretty cool, I thought.
Yeah.
We should also talk about set design and the production design that this team brought on, because this was shot in Indonesia, and from what I understand, it was done during the pandemic.
Yeah, apparently production started pre-pandemic.
Oh wow, this has been going on for a while then.
Yeah.
But I thought it was incredible. I think my favorite, like, let me put it like this, like when I see a lot of Western movies and they show India or they're set in India, there's a very specific lens that is used. I thought this was a much more authentic representation.
Yeah. It's kind of like the Mexico filter that they say, where everything is yellow.
Yeah, so it was like, it's not like they didn't, like, this movie definitely stayed in the space that Hollywood stays in when they show India, which is they show India to be a mostly poor country, which is motivated heavily by religious choices. While this movie stayed there, I thought it felt like a more authentic representation. That being said, my favorite, I think, set design part was when there's a fight scene in the brothel. You know, haven't been in one, but it feels like that's what they would look like. That's what they would feel like. I thought it was really well done. Didn't like the biting off of the guy's nose, though. That got a visceral reaction in my theater. Everyone just was like, "Oh!" I will say, when I went into this movie, I watched it in Beverly Hills, and so many, like, the theater was packed. Like, I've been to that theater before, and I've watched, I'm gonna say, arguably more popular movies there before, but I haven't seen theaters that full, so that was very nice to see. And to your point, like, people really had reactions to this movie, like physical ones. Like, people actually were like, in my theater, people clapped when the movie ended. People cheered when Queenie got hit on her face with that tray.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, if the goal here was to create like cool, powerful moments, I think they definitely succeeded.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it has. That actually brings me to one of my other things about the action. And again, not hating on John Wick here, but I think that there was a visceralness to the action in this movie. The choreography is amazing.
Yeah.
The choreography in John Wick movies are amazing. But at times I've noticed, especially in kind of 3 or 4, it feels choreographed to the point where it's almost like a dance. And again, I think Monkey Man is being a little bit more, is meant to be a little bit more hard hitting, even emotionally. So I think them choosing to go more visceral is kind of the point. Well, John Wick is meant to be a movie that's very, very fun. But yeah, no, they didn't over choreograph the action. It still felt like a little bit real, and there was moments of, especially in that first big action sequence when he's trying to escape, he is struggling to get through it. He's not Salman Khan, who just comes in and beats everyone without like breaking a sweat.
Right. Yeah, no, because he gets beaten down and it's very real and very raw. Which, I mean, I wish that the narrative had more of that, because they didn't hold back in the action scenes, right? I'm not going to go into much because I remember reading somewhere that when we're talking about a movie, it's unproductive to talk about what it could have been. Yep. It's a better conversation if we're talking about what it is and why it worked or why it didn't.
Yeah.
So without going into what it could have been, I'm just going to say that I could feel them holding back, like from making a point or like calling things out. Like even the city, for example, they have a fictional city, but this could very well be Mumbai or Delhi. Like it was. So I just thought at this point, like why hold back? Just go for it, right? Because obviously, as a creator, you have your convictions, and Dev Patel is not shying away from showing them on screen.
Yeah.
That I guess was my other little gripe. But I mean, as a viewing experience, it was really incredible. It drew me in. The music was excellent. The
music I thought was yeah,
it was it's like you said, the fight scenes, I mean, this movie is just one fight scene to another fight scene, maybe a beat or two between the two of them,
but but I would say there's also not, I mean, do you count the parts where he is in the ring as like action sequences?
I would.
Okay.
Yeah,
because I was thinking more of them that kind of like him doing his job. But yeah, if you count those, then it is a lot of fight scenes. But if you're not counting those and just the action sequences, there's really only 2 of them. There's the one where he tries to fight at the beginning. Now it's a long one,
right?
Because it starts in the building, goes to the streets. There's like a little car chase. We gotta talk about
the auto rickshaw chase.
Yes.
Beautiful. So well done. I love that. I love that this guy has named his auto rickshaw Nicki Minaj. It was very in character, I thought.
And having turbos.
Yeah. No, it was that was a very well executed auto rickshaw fight scene. As we talk about that, I also really liked how weirdly realistic everything that happened in the King's Bar or hotel or whatever it was. It was really well done.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very clear that the whole team believed very heavily in this vision, and they took the care to make sure that every piece was in place. But let's just maybe.
I have one last thing I want to talk about before we move on, because I mean I loved this movie. The only thing where there are certain points that stood out to me was the editing. I think most of the editing is actually pretty good, but there are certain points where when they're cutting from one scene to the other, it was a little choppy. Sometimes the transitions were incredible. Sometimes the transitions were a little choppy.
Yeah, I mean, that's always a very it's very interesting, because when we write, or at least when I write, I try to write in as many match cuts as possible. and obviously, like, all you can do is put it on the page and hope that your team takes it from there. So I always feel like the editing conversation is very interesting because also, like, your editor's gonna have their own like choices and ideas. But also when it comes to editing, it's not just creative choices. You also kind of have to work around logistical problems, I'm gonna say. And it sounds like this movie had a lot of those. So I can see how they might have had to edit around a certain issue. I couldn't tell which ones were the iPhone shots. Could you?
No.
So kudos to them. I mean, they covered it really well. Speaking of which, what would you say were your favorite scenes?
So, I have one, but I have a feeling you're going to take that one. So I'm actually going to go with the scene where he does bet on himself, and he's supposed to lose, but instead he wins the fights. And I think the reason why I really like that scene is because of Shalta Copley's character, where at first he's angry and he's like, what are you doing? It's like, we're going to get booed. And as soon as the crowd starts cheering for him, he has a big smile on his face because he's like, all right, I can profit off this. It was, that was a really good scene. It was, I thought it was very, very well done. I mean, it's, I did see in one of the interviews that Dev Patel gave about the movie, he was talking about the part of Hanuman's story that inspired him was that Hanuman forgot his powers and had to be reminded so that he can start betting on himself again. And I have a feeling that's kind of where that was. That's where that that's
scene
kind of
came
like
from.
It's not an acid trip, but whatever. The powder was.
Trishul it was called.
Yes.
It feels like something that, I mean, I was very intrigued. My favorite scene, I think, was the final climactic fight scene. When the entire community of the trans people in the temple came and helped him fight, and they were all in ghagras, and they were kicking ass, and it was beautiful. It was so well done. I've never seen, first of all, just like ghagras used in a fight scene, which I thought was incredible. I've never seen like actual representation of an angry trans person on screen, which I thought was very, like, it was very well deserved and very well done. On this one, I'm going to break the rules a little bit, and I'm going to say I have a second favorite scene, which was when he was during his training montage, and they had Zakir Khan and with the tablas, and that was that entire montage was just so incredibly done. And I sincerely hope that moving forward, a lot more people use like traditional like Hindustani music and Indian instruments in fight scenes. I think there's a rhythm to them that will definitely elevate these scenes.
That final fight was the scene I would have gone with.
Overall, it was a great watch. I genuinely enjoyed it, despite it not being my genre. We know it won't be coming out on Netflix, at least that's what it looks like. It is in theaters now if you guys want to go catch up. No? It is in theaters now if you guys want to go catch it.
So let's talk about score. Again, we use the screenplay coverage score of pass, consider, or recommend. So I guess I can go first. I think you probably predicted my score, but this is going to be a strong recommend from me. Love this movie. Immediately one of my favorite action movies, and probably my favorite movie I've seen of the year so far.
I mean, I don't agree with Rohan on 95% of things, but I think in this one I will. This was also a strong recommend for me. Definitely worth watching it, and if you can catch it in the theaters, it's worth the experience. I mean, it's not an extremely long movie. It's definitely worth the watch.
I think just under 2 hours.
I mean, time well spent for me. And if you are craving more of Dev Patel after watching this movie, I would recommend The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, which I know is a completely different genre, but it's also set in India. It's pretty hilarious, and it's really interesting because it's coming of age for old people, and of course Dev Patel is really good in it. So that would be worth a watch for me.
I'm gonna recommend Lion. Movie came out a few years ago. I think this is probably Dev Patel's best performance. He got nominated for an Oscar in this movie, despite only being in half the movie. I can't can't remember if it was for best lead or supporting actor. But that's a movie that I didn't really have many expectations for, and then I ended up just loving it. It was probably one of my favorite movies of that year.
No, I mean, it's a great movie. I remember watching it. Definitely worth a watch. From this episode, we decided to add a new section to the podcast. We watch movies, TV shows to make these episodes, but outside of it, we watch a bunch of other stuff too. So we thought it would be cool to talk about some other things we watched and if we recommend them. So Rohan wow. So Rohan, is there anything else you've been watching that you want to talk about?
I've been watching Shogun. It's a new show. I think technically it's an FX show, but I've been watching it on Hulu. And it's about a British sailor who lands in Japan, or whose ship gets taken over while he's in Japanese waters. And then he finds himself in the midst of kind of a civil war that's brewing. It's just super well-made historical drama, epic. One of the better TV shows in the past year.
Cool. I watched Crew. It is a Hindi film. I think it's in theaters right now. It's a heist. It's like a low-stakes heist film. It's got Kareena Kapoor, Tabu, and Kriti Sanon in it. With a cool cameo from Diljit Dosanjh, which was very interesting. Definitely worth a watch. It was very lighthearted and very well executed, I thought. I know it's been doing well, so if you do have the chance, definitely check it out.
All right.
Cool. Well, that was it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode on the Pages to Pixels podcast. I am Keerthana signing off.
I'm Rohan signing off.
Hope you enjoyed the episode. Please share it around with people you think will like it. Consider subscribing if you want more episodes. And don't forget to like and comment to show your support. Thank you.
Thank you so much.